Hello, my friend. Are you ready to have more clients? I'm your host, Debbie Shadid. I am a master at building businesses. I can help you get more clients with super simple strategies. Plus, I can help you with a mindset so you can overcome the drama and the doubt. So let's get started. All right. Hello, Janet. Welcome to the podcast and to the YouTube video. I just want to say to my guests that this is part of my Grow You to Grow Your Business summer series. And I have gone out and found some experts that I believe will be able to support your business growth by supporting you. So I want you to meet my friend, Janet Whalen. She's a coach for people who are needing more sleep. So tell us a little bit about how this got started for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I love that you're doing this, and thanks for the invitation.
Yeah.
I used to be a business coach too, so interestingly, and worked in marketing for my whole career, so similar background to you.
Yeah.
And was also a chronic insomniac for most of my adult and some of my childhood life. And I just assumed that I was stuck with it, that there was nothing I could do, that I just was made this way, that I was a lost cause, that I was a terrible sleeper. And I even started to convince myself that other people just didn't get it, that they could not sleep like me, that they could not waste a third of their life in bed, that they could get so much more done, et cetera, right? There's a quote, I'm going to forget it, so I won't even say it, but it's something to the effect of, I think it's like the last refuge of the insomniac is to like pretend that they're better than everybody else.
It's like a voting, like I'm the best insomniac. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, exactly. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to really do it, right?
Yeah. And I bet you, if we had people raise their hand right now, of everybody that we could see who also is an entrepreneur or a woman, a female, everybody in my audience is women. So they would all raise their hand probably and say they have trouble sleeping too.
Yeah, it's really common and it affects women 50% more than it does men. I've run into very few women. I have a few friends who are really great sleepers, and I call myself a really great sleeper now. Thank you, fortunately. But that's in the last 2.5 years. And before that, it was just miserable. So when I became a coach and I was doing business coaching, 2 different certifications. The second one was the Life Coach School, which is sort of how we met. As I was doing that work, I thought to myself, well, what's something that I could be working on using these tools that, I just need, not that I can bring my clients, but that I'm working on. And I thought, well, what if I could figure out a way to make myself a better sleeper? And I did. I used the tools, and it took me a long time. It was a lot of stopping and starting, doing the wrong things, like everything that I know is quote unquote wrong now. And it took me a really long time. Like it was over a year of trial and error. And, now I tell my clients I can get them sleeping in 8 weeks or less. So wow. I wish I had the access to the tools that I now know about. Anyway, so I figured it out just over a year, but was a really good sleeper and thought, I have just been given the keys to the universe. Like I have solved the biggest problem on planet Earth, and now I have to find a way to bring it to other people. I started researching it and realized I didn't actually figure this out. Well, I did. I stumbled upon it accidentally, but there is already a tool called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And it was very similar to the tools that we use in our coaching practice. It comes with a whole lot of other education and some tools to help you learn to see your bed as a place for rest and sleep, not for worry and insomnia and tossing and turning and racing minds. So I learned a whole lot more as I got certified in that. And then I just thought, this is everything. I kind of tossed and turned about, well, should I stop being a business coach? And I realized I don't have to stop coaching business women. In fact, I can probably help them even more with their businesses by bringing them this.
Yeah. Right? A rested businesswoman is a better businesswoman, right?
Yes, exactly. So I work with moms, I work with business women. I mean, really, as long as you're kind of a midlife woman, And I say midlife because at midlife, we kind of start struggling with some different insomnia reasons. Like if you're a young mom and you've just had kids, it stands to reason you're probably struggling with sleep, right? Because your sleep schedule is not your own. And it's a real challenge for young parents, for sure. There's still things that you can do, but I really enjoy working with midlife women who have really kind of given to their business, to their families, to their communities, to everyone else. And their own self-care has been kind of put on the back burner, right? And they almost feel as though they need permission to take a nap or they can't do it until everybody else is taken care of because, and I used to feel this way, if I take myself out of whatever it is that's going on here, something's going to fall apart. Something's not going to get done the way that I want it, et cetera, et cetera. And the more I thought about that and talked to other women, the more I realized I was not alone in that, and that was one of the key drivers or some of the key thoughts that were leading to women's chronic insomnia.
My women in this audience that are listening are women just like you're talking about. They have done for everyone else and they're ready to do for themselves. So tell me about sleep hygiene. This is a word that I've heard about. This is something that I've Googled probably with everyone else. So tell me about that.
Yeah, it's pretty much the first answer that comes up if you Google, why can't I sleep or how can I sleep better or one of those things. And there's nothing wrong with sleep hygiene. What sleep hygiene is kind of setting your surroundings up, setting your night up for your best kind of go at sleep, right? So it's things like having a dark, cool room, a really comfy bed with comfy sheets and pillows, having a bit of a wind down hour before you go to bed, not looking at screens and blue lights. It's like doing all the right stuff, right? The problem with sleep hygiene alone and why it's not an answer for the insomniac who's searching that on Google is that they're tools that help you once you're a good sleeper. They help good sleepers sleep better. They don't help insomniacs sleep at all. And most of the reason for that is that the reason you're not sleeping is stress. It's racing thoughts. It's, right? It's anxiety. It's things that actually started earlier during your day or even weeks ago. It has nothing to do with whether your room is dark enough. So you can darken your room and all you're going to do is bring that racing mind into your nice, dark, cool room, but you're still going to be awake.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. So what are the stories that you hear about people, the most common stories about sleepers? I mean, look, I'm in this category. You're talking to me. I even have the blue light sunglasses that I bought from Sleep Hygiene. Somebody, I saw them online. That's got to be it, So anyway, what are the most common stories you hear?
Oh, goodness. And I could talk about blue light glasses all day long. They're not the answer. I used to do one-to-one coaching. I still do a little bit, but I have a membership now, which is my main focus. When I used to do only one-to-one coaching, all of my clients had to fill out a fairly extensive questionnaire at the beginning. And so it was astonishing to see how many similarities there were between women of all different walks of life living all over North America, actually in Bali and in Europe as well. I had clients pretty much globally, as it turned out, and they all had similar concerns. One was their family, but my house has to be clean and tidy and everybody has to be, finished doing their things. And then I can think about going to sleep. One of the other ones was, well, I bring my device to bed with me. So your phone, your laptop, your whatever, it's the only time I can answer my work emails in peace and quiet. So they literally bring it into their bed, which is one of the worst things that we can do. Because you're bringing all your stress from work and all your problems from the day into your bedroom. It's almost like all those little characters and conversations are now living in your bed with you. And that's the last place you want to be thinking about those things. So that is those two are the really common ones. With businesses, it tends to be, well, like anything to do with me and my self-care, so exercise, even hydration, like anything to do with looking after yourself is the last thing on the list. My clients come first, like my family, my clients, my business, right? I have so much to do. And women like us, I'm going to put myself in this category, who are entrepreneurial and, or from a business background, tend to come from this perspective of, if I'm awake, my time better be spent productively. And we have a really hard time unwinding. We have a really hard time being instead of doing. We have a really hard time prioritizing and scheduling rest and downtime, which is really important. So it's a big piece of the work that I do with clients. There is a really common thing that comes up. I say that sleep coaching is like winning the time lottery, because almost every single woman I've worked with has found at least an hour, if not up to 3, that she gets to spend on herself from sleeping better, because they're no longer sleeping in, they're no longer tossing and turning, they're no longer like going to bed early to try and sleep better. Like their schedule is just so much different once they sleep well. The problem they find is now they have an hour to 3 to spend on themselves, and they feel like they shouldn't, or they don't know what to do with themselves because they've literally never taken the time to think about what they want.
Yeah, I was thinking about the self-judgment when you said, I mean, for me, I feel like I want to be productive, and I feel like if I sit down and relax, my challenge that I'm coaching myself on is, it's okay to relax, and that doesn't equal lazy. I have such self-judgment about, I want to wear the badge of I'm a hard worker. And like we used to do with multitasking, like I'm great at it. Okay, that's not good. Neither is this, but I have, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would imagine a lot of women are like that. They see it as lazy if they sit down to relax.
Totally how they see it. And I often, like, one of my sayings is sometimes the most productive thing we can do is rest, right? It's when we're not resting our brains, when we're not resting our bodies, when we're not taking ourselves out of the busy. We can't also be creative. We can't also stay on top of everything, right? We will burn out. We will get too tired or too overdone, too much. And it's just not human to be able to expect ourselves to keep working at those paces. And yet, this is how we've been socialized, right? As women and as business people, that work hard, play hard, and as women, look after everybody else, and then you, and everybody else even sometimes comes before your business. So it's a really challenging thing to kind of unlearn and unwind before you can then build the new habits. So I for a lot of women, spend a lot of time in coaching on the unlearning piece, which is why my membership, like, I can help you start sleeping better in 8 weeks or less. But then how do you keep sleeping better? Because life is going to keep happening to you, right? It's going to keep throwing you curveballs. It's going to keep putting you in situations and circumstances that aren't ideal, or that don't feel like they match up well with rest and sleep. And busy times are going to come, and illnesses and relationship difficulties, and you name it. So how do we set you up with the thoughts and the practices and the habits that are really going to support you, so that when those things happen, you know exactly how you're going to handle it, and you don't fall back into a spiral of chronic insomnia again?
Oh, so you haven't mentioned weight, but I have to think, since I also am guilty of this, you guys are listening, are hearing a confession of Debbie today, that, when I'm tired, I notice, or like when I'm driving in the car, tired by myself on the road or something, I notice that I'm feeding myself to like re-energize myself. So I've got to think that once somebody starts sleeping better, that they naturally might lose a little weight too.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So there's been a lot of study on this. Not enough to really find a causal relationship between sleep and, like, the idea that weight will just come off because you're sleeping better is kind of not true, or we can't prove that yet. But what we do know is when you are not well rested, the parts of your brain that regulate your emotions and your kind of reactive self, they're not connected. So your prefrontal cortex, which is like your executive functioning, your decision making, all of that, and your amygdala are the two parts that I'm talking about. And your amygdala is the one that's a little more your kind of fear center that reacts on, it's your emotion center. So if those two aren't balanced, like the sort of reasoning and the fear and judgment, the judgment and fear and all of the reactive brain stuff is going to take over. And so you're going to feel, and this is, most women will say this, that insomnia actually doesn't feel like being tired all day long. It feels like being grouchy and crabby and fighting with my partner and yelling at my kids and just emotionally unstable and not able to feel like I can get through my day. It doesn't necessarily feel like I need to lie down right now and nap. That's actually probably a sign of a more serious sleep disorder, not just classic insomnia. So what goes along with that is your decision making around how you want to eat, how you want to feel your body, right? We are way more likely to choose comfort food when we're in that mode and when we're feeling kind of emotionally down and off and not really in charge of our decisions. And I noticed this, like there were a couple days in the last few months where I've done either podcast interviews or conversations like this very early in the morning because the other person's in a totally different time zone. And I'll be like up way earlier than my normal wake up time. And for the rest of the day, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so off. And all my automatic thoughts are happening. And I'm thinking, oh, I would just love to have a piece of toast right now, or I'd love to have like a sandwich or something that I wouldn't normally do, right? And it's just, and I have to stop myself and go, oh, right, this is just my tired brain. This is just me trying to comfort myself because I feel off. That's all this is. And then I can kind of remind myself that everything else I'm saying about it in my head is just drama. I don't need to make it mean a big deal. It's not a big deal that this is happening. It's totally normal. It's a biological answer to me having not gotten the sleep I needed last night. I'm also not going to make a big deal of it for tonight. I know that I'll sleep well because I'm building up a lot of sleep pressure throughout the day. So it's learning how to talk to yourself in a more supportive way so that you get through the day eating and behaving in the way that works for you, and then, get back to your kind of supportive behaviors for sleep in the night.
So why is it that more women have insomnia than men? You mentioned earlier, but what's the deal, I mean, I can guess and make some guesses, but you tell me.
So one of them we've already talked about, which is women in childbearing years, right? Yeah. We're typically the ones to be getting up in the night. That then creates behaviors and really bad habits that can last for decades, for one thing. And it sets you up for that whole not prioritizing yourself piece that we talked about before, and to where you start feeling like you need permission to treat yourself well. Then the other piece is hormones, right? So as we get into middle age and perimenopause and menopause and beyond, all of that changing hormone mixture has a real impact on our circadian rhythm, on our sleep. And it's a biological fact that very many women are going to have hot flashes in the night. They're going to have hormonal reasons for them waking up. And it's not that they're making it up in their head. It's absolutely real. The problem happens when you wake up because you've had a hot flash and then you think all is lost. The night is ruined. Now I'm not going to fall back asleep again. You look at the clock and say, I only have 2 more hours to sleep. It's a waste for me to go back to sleep. I'll just lie here and toss and turn anyway. And that's all drama, right? So if we can learn to just say to ourselves, yeah, I had a hot flash. Like if you're even just totally your pajamas are wet, you're like really uncomfortable. I just say, get up, change, go back to bed. And it's nothing else has to be happening. Like the only true fact about that is I was uncomfortable. I made myself comfortable. Now I can go back to sleep. No one has a hot flash that lasts all night long.
Well, so what about taking, not an Ambien, I think is the drug, but what about taking a Benadryl or something else? I know you mentioned when we've talked before about weighted blankets. What about some of these other things that could aid in sleeping?
Yeah. So again, most of those are great at helping good sleepers sleep better. The advice you read on the internet is usually not for insomniacs. This is where I think we have to kind of draw a line, right? So there's advice for sleep and there's advice for insomnia, and they're not always the same. So advice for insomnia usually has to start from within, and the work to fix insomnia starts from within. So a weighted blanket, blue light glasses, gadgets to keep your pillow cool, all of those other things are external, right? Mm-hmm. They are like a Band-Aid solution that might help fix your symptom, but they don't actually fix the problem. And so sleep coaching is directed at helping you sleep or fix the problem. So it's why we address everything that went on during your day. It's why we talk about the thoughts that led to your stress level at work that day, or whatever it is that your mind races about at night that keeps you awake. About even what you believe about sleep, what you believe to be true, right? Because most people believe that we need to sleep for 8 to 9 hours because that's what we see in the media. But that's not supported by science. The actual best number, and this is in every single study that's ever been done on this worldwide on millions and millions of people, has shown that the highest correlation between or the best correlation between sleep and long life is around 7 hours, and even a little bit less for a healthy adult. So we're giving ourselves actually insomnia by trying to achieve something that might not actually be normal for our body, right? Like my ideal seems to be somewhere around 7.25, 7.5 hours. If I try to sleep for 8 hours, I get myself in all kinds of trouble because it's just not what my body wants to do. It doesn't feel restful for me. I wake up automatically in the morning before that amount of time comes. So if I'm thinking I need 8 and I'm lying there for half an hour, like trying to eke out another 30 minutes, all I'm doing is training my brain to find my bed frustrating. And when I get in there again that night, I think this is a place where I struggle. Right? This isn't a restful, peaceful place for me.
Oh my gosh. Stories in our mind that we're telling ourselves.
Yes. And so much of it is not true. I spend the entire first module of my program retraining people on what's actually true about sleep. And most people are shocked to find out, how much what they believed is not actually true.
Wow. Okay, I'm sorry, I almost interrupted. What about the watches where people are tracking? That seems insane to me. Like, why would you want to know? But what are your thoughts about that? What is good?
I'm wearing one, but I wear it for fitness. I don't wear it to bed. Thank you for bringing this up, because this is, I have in my course, I do 5 tips for success right at the beginning. And one of them is take off your fitness tracker for sleep. At least during the 8 weeks where you're really learning these habits, because, there's so much here. And this was one of the first mistakes I did when I was trying to fix my sleep. And I did this because I also had migraines, and I thought that my sleep and my migraines were tied, and turns out they were. But I made my sleep worse by trying to track it with my fitness tracker. So what happens is, especially if you have a Fitbit that gives you all kinds of data, right, on how much time you spent in REM sleep and deep sleep and light sleep and how many times you were awake and what your heart rate was and all of this stuff. The problem with all of that is there's nothing we can do with that information. So I can't teach you to get more REM sleep, and you can't teach yourself to get more REM sleep, even if you wanted to. So what's the point of knowing and tracking that information, right? Most people, including sleep researchers, don't even really know what the ideal amount of REM sleep is, because it could be different for everybody. We know that it's an important phase of sleep, but we don't actually know that like the healthiest person on earth should get like this amount. I know somebody who was in a group who were all working on their sleep together. It was like a business mastermind, and they all decided to buy Oura rings and track their sleep and see if they could figure out, you know, like how to optimize performance and stuff. And they all started competing about who could get the most REM sleep. And some guy was like, I get 4 hours. And I thought, like, if you knew actually about sleep phasing, you'd know like that's a massive number. And half of our night is spent in light sleep. And if you sleep for 7 hours, half of that is 3.5. Having 4 hours be REM sleep, like it's almost bordering on impossible. I don't even know why somebody would think that that's ideal, but because you don't know, you think it's something to, you know, compete with yourself over, and you keep looking for more. But the reality is you can't cause more. So there's no point really knowing that information. There's a phenomenon that sleep researchers have called orthosomnia, which is basically a disorder caused by getting obsessed by the data on your fitness tracker for sleep. And it's literally, and I'm on some Facebook groups for insomnia where people do this. They will screenshot their results every single day and post it and go, look, everybody, look what I got. And like, what should I do about this? And it still looks like I'm awake like 14 times. What should I do? But what they don't know is that it might be normal for them to be awake 14 times. Like our bodies actually wake up several times, like quite a few, more than you even know because you don't remember most of them in the night. But if you're shown data that says you wake up 14 times, you're going to get worried about that and think like, right?
Something's tired if you know that, right?
Yes, exactly. And so it's not helpful. Last point about them is most of them are not overly accurate. They're getting more and more accurate. But the only thing that you could really accurately track on them is the number of hours you slept in a night and over time. Like you're looking for a trend line, right? So I never want people looking at only one night of sleep anyway, or even 2 or 3. So in my program, we look at like a whole week's worth of data and we take an average and we say, okay, this is what this week looked like. And we're going to compare next week's average to that, because from night to night, or even 2 nights to 3 nights, a lot can change. And it depends on lots of environmental factors. And that's just life and being a human. So focusing on one night and saying, well, I only slept for 6 3/4 hours last night. Oh my gosh, like everything's shot. This is terrible. I'm an insomniac again. That's not helpful thinking, right? So if you were to look at Fitbit data that said, for the most part, like over a month, my average sleep is 7 hours and 25 minutes. That's fantastic. And that's all you really need to know. So they can help with that. They can help if you're someone who thinks you're only getting 3 hours and you're worrying about that and stressing. If all you're going to look at is that trend line over a month and look at that average, then I'd say go for it and use that. And that might be something you want to take to your doctor or whatever to say, looks like my Fitbit's telling me I only get 4 hours of sleep. Like maybe there's something wrong that we need to look at. Maybe I need a sleep study, whatever. But other than that, try not to use them.
Well, I mean, really, the truth is one person could wake up one time in the night and think that was horrible and say, I had a terrible night's sleep. And somebody else might wake up 14 times and say, I had a terrible night's sleep. So,
or think it was a great night.
Yeah, right.
Right.
It's all what we think.
It's subjective.
I want to ask you about your actual definition of what an insomniac is. Like if somebody wants to come work with you, they say, I have insomnia. What actually is that?
Good question. So in sort of the sleep research community, they define it as having trouble sleeping 3 nights of the week or more for more than 3 months. So for real insomniacs, that's not hard to achieve, right? Like it's usually 5 nights a week, whatever. However, even serious insomniacs will have a really good sleep in between there. Like you'll have like 3 bad nights and then a really good night, and then 2 bad nights and 2 really good nights. And it kind of goes like that, right? Because your body will just recover it after a while. It's not going to allow you to stay up worrying. But that's sort of the definition. Most people who come to me tell me that either their insomnia started during COVID, which has been a really common thing, or that they've had insomnia for years or decades, and really can't even remember when it started because they've had a problem for most of their life. So it varies in how it looks, but I would call it acute insomnia if it's anything less than 3 months.
Wow. Okay. So 2 more things I want to ask you before we wrap up. One is, you say that sleeping better is like winning the time lottery. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is my favorite thing. So sleeping in is one of the worst things that you can do, right? Even if you're a really good sleeper. I don't usually tell good sleepers to stop doing what they're doing because it probably is working for them. But when you sleep in on a weekend after waking up 5 days in a row at the same time, you're essentially giving your body jet lag. It's like you're throwing yourself into another time zone as far as your circadian rhythm is concerned, right? Because your sleep and circadian rhythm is based on, and you learn this really in depth in my program, but our 24-hour clock that is based on the way the earth spins and cycles of light and darkness doesn't change. And your circadian rhythm doesn't care what else is going on in your life that made you want to sleep in. It just knows, wow, my retinas did not encounter sunlight at 7 a.m. the way they did for the last 5 days. I am getting up at 9 or 10 instead of 7 on 2 days of the week, and expecting myself to still be tired at 11 o'clock at night on Saturday and Sunday. Why isn't it working? Right? Well, we have 2 periods in our day, a 16-hour wakefulness period and an 8-hour sleep period. In order to feel tired for that 8-hour period to kick in, you have to have been awake for the 16 hours. A whole bunch of stuff is going on in your body with neurotransmitters and hormones and light and a whole bunch of other stuff that we just don't have time to talk about today. But your body needs that 16 hours to get tired again. Like it's almost like thinking about sleep as a reward for a day really well spent, right? So if you don't get up until 10:30 in the morning on a Saturday, you can't legitimately ask your body to be tired 11 hours later. It just doesn't work that way. It's not how your body was set up. So
you basically mess yourself up for the whole week. It sounds
you
like
mess yourself up for the whole week. So yeah, to answer your question, because I got a little off track there, but this is how we gain time back in our day, right? So if you sleep in on weekends and you normally get up at 7 during the week, you've just lost 6 hours on your weekend, right? Not only that, you're probably going to try, because this is what most insomniacs do, you're going to try to go to bed early the next night because you want to make up for the sleep that you lost, that you didn't sleep well the night before. So you go to bed earlier and then you toss and turn in your bed and you do all these techniques and get your weighted blanket out and worry and all the other things. And so you lost a couple hours at night, and then you lost them again the next morning when you slept in trying to make up for the sleep that you lost. And then that continues through the next week, because Sunday night you lay there worrying about work and the fact that you're still not tired and how will I ever sleep again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So during the week, what it looks like is prioritizing time for yourself well before it's time to go to bed. There's a whole list of things that I recommend that people do with that. But it's getting up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every night, and then looking for those hours that you would have spent trying to sleep before and using them differently. And I do have one client who claims she found 3 extra hours in her day, which is why I say 1 to 3, because For most people, it's somewhere around 1 or 2, but it has been 3 for one of my clients. And it was for me too. Like I gained back a whole bunch of time that I now use for exercise that I didn't think I had the time, but it was there. I was just using it differently, right? It didn't feel like productive hours because I was putting so much effort into my sleep, but sleep doesn't respond to effort. So it was really time wasted, and you just don't even notice it once it's kind of being used that way.
Oh my goodness. We all need to work with you. All right. So we haven't talked a lot about the thought work. We've been skirting around about like you're in bed and your mind is too busy and all that kind of stuff. And you guys who are listening to this Grow You series know that as a life coach, all of what happens for any of the guests that are going to come on here this summer, it's all going to come back to our thinking. So aside from you helping us learn how to think better so we can sleep better, is there any other tips that you could give us that would help us be able to sleep better?
Yeah. So you do want me to talk about thought work or no?
You can either way if you want to. Yeah.
Let me see. So the tips that I would give you easily to try are don't have a clock on your bedside table, because if you're looking at the time in the middle of the night, you're only doing it so that you can create drama about what the time is, right? You don't need to know if it's 3 o'clock in the morning because you don't have a meeting, you don't have a client, you don't have anywhere to go. You don't need to know. It's just time to be in bed. So you're there, you're doing the right thing. Okay. If you wake up in the middle of the night, and so this is a mixture of a tool and where thought work comes in. If you wake up in the middle of the night, a tip would be, instead of saying to yourself, like, oh, here we go again. I knew this was going to happen. Every night I wake up at 3 o'clock. This is ridiculous. When is it ever going to stop? Because that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Is just lie there and go, oh, okay, what's actually true here? Okay. It's the middle of the night. It's dark outside. I'm awake. Other people are asleep. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only things that are factual, right? So if you do that and you force your brain through that exercise, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's not really a big deal unless I make it a big deal, right? And making it a big deal is things like, I only have 2 more hours to sleep. What if it takes me an hour to fall asleep? I'm going to be tired in my meeting and I have to be on a call at 8 o'clock and et cetera, et cetera. That's all drama. And that's all what's going to keep you awake. So that's a little bit of a tool and some thought work to try. And basically you're just looking for the facts in the situation so that you can remind your brain that anything else it's thinking is just a dramatic thought and it's bound to keep you awake. Okay, so that's one. I already mentioned one of them, but I'll just get a little more specific about it. Waking up and going to bed at the same time every day is probably the most important thing that you can do. And I would even say that waking up at the same time is more important than the other one. So, because you don't have to have the exact same amount of sleep every single night. You can be aiming for a certain amount, but if one night is 6.5 hours and one is 8, who cares? You're still going to average out at 7, right? So if you wake up at the same time every day, and the earlier the better, you will train your body that it doesn't really need an alarm clock to wake up over time. Your body will find its natural kind of rhythm, and it will get tired on its own at your natural bedtime. So it involves a process of, like, there's a whole lot that goes along with this, but around learning how to recognize your body's drowsiness cues, because this is one of the things that, with the way we're socialized in North America, right? It's just go, go, go all the time and productivity. And we don't even know when we're tired anymore.
Yeah.
Right? We go to bed when the news is over, when our partner goes to bed, when the kids are done their day, when we finish the dishes and the house is clean and whatever, when everything's done, then it's time to go to bed. That needs to all get thrown away. We need to learn to go to bed when we're yawning, when our eyes are drooping, when we can't focus on a book because we're reading the same line over and over. These are all symptoms of drowsiness. right?
Yeah.
But we push away at that and we're like, no, just like, I just want to see the end of this show. I don't care if I fall asleep on the couch right? And then we wonder why we can't fall asleep when we want to. Well, our body just told us it was time to fall asleep and we ignored it. So this is why we create these scenarios for ourselves. So waking up at the same time every day will help your body find its natural cycle of sleep and wakefulness. And getting up early is actually ideal because one of the other keys, and the third tip that I will give you, is to get some light in your eyes early every single day. Your circadian rhythm is kicked off in the morning by natural light hitting your retinas and telling your brain it's time to shut down the melatonin and give me a boost of cortisol to wake me up for the morning. Natural light is the best at doing that. So if you even spent 10 minutes just sitting on your porch or you're in your backyard or whatever, every single morning around the same time, and if it's winter and it's cold where you live, you can just sit by a really bright window and this will work. And it really helps your body to wake up properly, to kick off your wakefulness system for that 16 hours that we want to be awake. And you will start, once you do this regularly, you will start feeling tired at a very natural time once your body's been awake for 16 hours. And if you track that over time, and we do track in my program, but we do it not on a Fitbit, you'll just start to notice, oh, when I go to bed at this time and I wake up at this time, I kind of like, it doesn't take me long to fall asleep. And my body, I'm often awake like 5 minutes before my alarm. It's so weird, but it's just, it's how it's supposed to go. Right.
Oh my goodness, this could go on and on forever. I mean, really, I think you have said everything that I've said to myself, and I'm pretty sure you said almost everything that anybody else is a poor sleeper is also saying, like she knows exactly the words that I have said.
Yeah.
All common things. And I've got to say, ladies, as a business coach, I know for sure that if you are well rested, you can make better decisions faster with more clarity. I always say we have this sort of natural instinct that is good to rely on, and it's just sort of dulled when you're tired. So there's so much more productivity that can be gained from good sleep. This is so awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really, like fueling our bodies, burning off extra calories, or like moving, fueling, and sleeping are the three things we have to do for our bodies, right? Every single day. The other two just kind of happen. The third one, the sleep one, we're not really taught how to do it because we think it should just happen naturally, but it also happens naturally the other way, right? We can very easily fall into cycles of insomnia that can really last and become a real problem and exacerbate stress. Like the stress and the insomnia just become this spinning like downhill wheel tumbling down the hill, right? And it's very hard to stop once it gets rolling. So it's not undoable. It's this program works for almost everybody. Like 85% of people who try this work find it helpful, and it works better than sleeping pills. So it's worth a shot if you're someone who struggles with this. And yes, I do know all the lines and all the stories because I was an expert at it.
So how would somebody work with you? What would be what do you have to offer? And also, we need to get some kind of freebie that you can share with everybody. So tell me what you have available and how they could work with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, for sure. So if you go to janetwhalen.com, my last name is WHALEN.com, you can click the link that's beside my picture at the top of my website to learn more about my membership, which is called Permission to Sleep. Or you can scroll down just a little bit below that and have access to my top 3 tips for sleep for midlife moms, I think is the one that's up there now, but it's for anybody. It covers a couple of things we didn't talk about today, actually. You can also join my private Facebook group called Permission to Sleep they're all called that.
That's
And
good.
I do live videos in there. We talk about all of this stuff in depth, and you can follow me on Instagram at Janet Whalen Coaching. I think that's all the places that I am, but yeah, I'd love to see anyone in my group or on Instagram or in my program who would love to learn more about sleep.
Well, okay. I'm going to share all the links in the show notes. You guys, this is big. I mean, I think this is, I've been taking notes myself here as she's been talking. And I think the biggest takeaway that I have you just said at the end is that we talk about the three things like fitness, food, and sleep. And we're all focused on food and fitness. And that third thing is like the last thing that anybody is thinking about.
And it's the thing that can make the other two easier.
Yes.
Right? That's the amazing part about it. Like, I really feel like we should focus on this one first.
Interesting. Well, my goodness, you guys find Janet and get into her membership, get in her Facebook group, grab her freebie, and find out how you can work with her. This has been so amazing. You guys, I hope you've had some takeaways today from Janet, and that, you'll use this to change your business as you change your sleep habits as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks so much for having me, Debbie.
Yeah, have an amazing day and a good night's sleep. I guess maybe you're going to have one anyway.
Anyway.
Yes,
I hope everyone does.
Yeah, all the best. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, my friends, are you ready to get more clients? Let's go do it. Have an amazing week. And if you guys want that business assessment, I want to help you with your business. DebbieShadid.com/let's chat, LETSCHAT for a free business assessment. Until next time, bye-bye.